Okay, before I get started, I assume this is to advance the slides. I want to just poll the audience. I'd like to know who I'm speaking to today. So with a quick raise of hands, who is from a provider, a health system, researcher, or caregiver? You can raise your hands. Okay. Who is from a patient advocacy, or caregiver advocacy group? Great. Who is from a pharmaceutical company? Life science? Oh, who's from a pharmaceutical company or life sciences company? Okay, great. CRO, clinical research organizations? Okay, and everybody else? Okay. And governments. Who here thinks the Montreal bagel is better than the New York bagel? Yeah, right? Who knows what AI is? Okay. Who is familiar with the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City? Okay. And who has an idea of how AI can help with clinical trial recruitment? Okay. All right, now we got the baseline down. Right. I can advance the slides now. Okay, just a quick disclaimer on this. I work for IQVIA. Material property of IQVIA. There are no forward-looking statements, and opinions are my own. Also, I'm an engineer, and I'm not known to be brief. You're a good presenter for that. I'm going to quickly explain who I am, what IQVIA is, what we do, specifically in oncology, and specifically what we're doing around improving research and clinical trials. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges in clinical trials that sites have told us around the world, specifically in participating in trials, but also very specifically in trial matching. I'm going to give a quick definition of what AI is, and then I'm going to talk about 3 practical use cases for AI. I'll talk about some implementation challenges. It's not all magic and works right away. There are some things that need to be overcome. And last but not least, I'll talk about some case studies and work that we've done and some of these successes that we've seen from some of the work. Okay? So, Michael Krupnick, IQVIA, Senior Director of Engineering. I'm an electrical engineer by training. I started off my career at Olympus in GI, actually, working in endoscopy information systems. I actually have a patent for capturing images for the first high-definition endoscope when they came out with that back in 2000. Worked at a couple startups, and then I've been at IQVIA for a while, first in digital health, now prescribing, and now in research. Personally, the question about the Macy's Parade is, I've inflated the balloons for the Macy's Parade for the last 20 years, and if you happen to watch it, I will be driving the stinky cheese underneath the diary of the Wimpy Kid. So look out for me in the Macy's Parade coming up next month. So IQVIA is a global human data sciences company with deep Canadian experience. We're one of the largest CROs in the world, one of the largest health data science companies in the world. Globally, we have over 87,000 people. Here in Canada, we have over 1,600. We have a number of offices all over, including here in Kirkland and all over Ottawa, Toronto, and Halifax. So in oncology specifically, we've done a lot of research over the last 5 years, a significant amount of research. So we've done over 1,400 hematology and oncology studies worldwide over the last 5 years, specifically in prostate cancer, specifically in malignant tumors, prostate cancer, REN63, over 1,500 site activations worldwide, over 7,000 patients enrolled across 59 countries. So it's a ton of work in oncology. I lead a team, an engineering team within our data strategy access enablement. Our team is basically set up to develop new technologies and new methods of research. And we're kind of all across the spectrum, everything from site enablement to direct-to-patient data collection and recruitment, decentralized trials, to new methods of research, including database studies, tokenization, linkage, all sorts of stuff. I'm going to talk specifically about one of the teams in my group, which is called IntelliQuit, which is an acquisition we made a couple years ago. So IntelliQuit is an oncology trial matching solution and a consortium of sites. It was initially started in the United States. We have a number of sites across the US. Basically, we work with sites to help them curate their data, run NLP on it, and then gather patient insights, be able to very quickly run clinical trial matching and feasibilities, and basically continuously match and manage the screening process at sites. And then once they do that, we help them push the data automatically into the EDC to really streamline research that the sites participate in. You can see some of the numbers of the sites and the patients that we have in the United States. We've started to expand this globally. We're starting to do this now in more and more countries. We look for places to expand it to. We have our first couple sites in Japan. They're coming online this year. We hope to expand elsewhere into in Canada soon. Okay, so that's kind of the background and the quick spiel on IQVIA and what we do in California. I'm going to talk quickly about the challenges in clinical trials. So this is what we've heard from our sites. I think we heard some of this yesterday as well. So there are kind of four main challenges for sites participating in clinical trials today. First off is the studies are becoming more complex. They're using more and more technology. They're having more complex trial designs. There are just more studies that are out there, more CROs that are out there. We have a lot of staffing challenges. We heard yesterday about the increasing number of drugs that have come to market. That means a lot more studies. But with those more studies has not come more staff for our research departments. Our research departments have increased their staff to the same number of people. They have to be picky with what studies they participate in. Technology. I was working with a large academic center on the west coast of the US recently and told me they had 30 different technology solutions deployed in their research department for participating in research. So there's a lot of technology out there, and also investigator payments are starting to come down. So all of that is sort of leading to sites having to be more picky with what studies they participate in. It's one of the reasons why they're turning down studies at a great rate. Specifically for patient trial matching, we've noticed sort of three main things that are preventing sites from finding patients to match for their trials. The first major issue is around unstructured data. So a lot of the really key, crucial information that you need to match a patient to a trial is sort of stuck in free text. It might come from a genomics report, but it's in a PDF, and it's not necessarily structured in the record. Even staging information, ECOG information, a lot of the key values are not structured in the record. We'll talk a little bit about that. The second thing is around timing. So you need to know that the patient is eligible for the study at the right time. If you find out too late, it's too late to enroll them in the study. Okay, so we need to be able to find the patient at the right time. And the last thing is really that overburden of staff. We just don't have enough people all across the organization. Also lack of, there are tools for doing queries and stuff like that, but many times staff don't have access to those tools or training on how to run those queries. So those are kind of three things in trial matching that we've noticed and we've observed. Okay, so what is AI? You guys all raise your hands so you know the answer to this. Everybody has a different opinion. I'll give you my opinion. First off, what is cancer? So cancer really is a broad classification of disease. And I apologize, I'm not an oncologist, so please don't come down on me for my classification, my definition. Uncontrolled growth and division of abnormal cells. On the left-hand side here, you can see a tree which represents, it's called OncoTree. It's an open source mapping system for all the different types of cancer. It was adopted by the American Association of Cancer Research. But basically, it is a broad category of disease. AI is the same thing. We hear this word AI used quite a lot. Hey, AI, this says AI, ML, NLP. These words are used interchangeably. They're not interchangeable. They're actually very distinct things. AI is really the broad category. Okay. First thing to sort of understand is a broad classification of technologies to mimic elements of human intelligence. That's my definition of AI. Three practical applications I'm going to talk about today for studies. The first is natural language processing. We talked about that on structured text. I'll talk about how that works. The second is around chat assistance. And the third is around predictive models. These are not new things. They've been around for a while. But we have seen some acceleration over the last couple of years, specifically with the invention of some new methodologies in machine learning. In fact, the Nobel Prize for Physics was just given to two gentlemen for their fundamental science around machine learning. These advancements in machine learning have led to these large language models, which you've all heard about. We hear a lot in the news. And these are really technology, they're catalysts, they're accelerating things, right? So NLP is not new, but it's getting better. It's happening faster. Okay? Oh, we got stuck. And the battery died on this. Which way do I have to point the? What's that? Okay, I don't know any good jokes. I'm sorry. I'm an engineer. We don't really have to do this. Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm rushing through this so quickly. I did not know about like sort of the interactive method of this conference. I actually really like it, but I prepared way too much material. So if we don't get enough time for questions, please come find me afterwards. I do apologize. I would have sort of made it more brief. Okay, so natural language processing. So the problem, if we could go back one slide actually. Yeah, so the problem here is a lot of the key information. So this is a study with some criteria, inclusion and exclusion criteria. We have 4 of our criteria that have been matched, but 2 of them are related to biomarkers, molecular biomarkers. We're looking for patients that are BRAF positive, KRAS, and NRAS negative. So normally we can go in and we can review the chart. We might have a note like this in the chart or something that's come back from the lab. But we'd have to manually review all the charts to find this information. And if we go to the next slide, so NLP will automatically read through the chart, it will find this information, it will structure it, and it will tick the boxes so we know that these patients are eligible. Okay. Go to the next slide. So predictive models. So I talked about the timing element and the challenge around timing. So if you think about sort of the patient journey, although I heard we're not supposed to say patient journey anymore, I think there's a new term that we're supposed to say, so I apologize, I haven't learned that yet. But if you think about the patient journey, we have this period of time when patients are first symptomatic, for pre-diagnosis, they get their diagnosis. Up until the point they get their first diagnosis and up until the point where they start with their first line of therapy, they're eligible for potentially a clinical trial. Once they sort of get onto that first line of therapy, they may no longer be eligible for that first study. As a patient begins to progress into, if the first line of therapy doesn't work, if the patient begins to progress, as they start to progress, they then become eligible for a second study, right? And they're eligible for that second study until you start the second line of therapy, right? So there's a timing element to enrolling patients in studies. And if we find out that the patient is eligible for study after these windows, it's effectively too late to enroll them in the study. If we go to the next slide. So certainly we want to be able to identify them at these points when they progress, at these points when they're undiagnosed. But what if we could predict even earlier? What if we can predict the disease, the diagnosis earlier? What if we can predict the progression earlier so we can identify these patients and maybe get them into these second lines earlier or first lines earlier? So this is what predictive models is all about, using data to predict events that happens in the future and then sort of being able to do something about it earlier. If we can go to the next slide. Oh, it does work. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, last but not least, chat assistance. So querying data takes time and expertise. So a lot of times sites get inundated with feasibility requests and site surveys. Hey, can you participate in this trial? Do you have the patients we need? But it takes a lot of time to get that answer. And sometimes they have like a central analytics department. They have to put a ticket in with the central analytics department and wait for an answer. Central analytics department is also staffed short, not enough people. It might take them a long time to get an answer, and that time might be outside of the time frame, potentially, of participating in the study. So what if we could sort of compress that down? What if we could get that answer in 5 minutes? I think this is one of the elements in which chatbots are really going to help out in the future, as opposed to having to wait for a database analyst or data scientist to run a query or build something. We can just ask the chatbot, hey, do I have patients that meet this and that criteria? Give me a list. Okay, so that's one of the things that the AI is going to help advance with. I think we talked a little bit about this yesterday about the need to be able to find patients in that box. So a little bit of a high-level definition of AI. Quickly, 3 different examples: NLP, chatbots, and last but not least, chatbots and predictive models. It's not all magic and roses. It doesn't work every time. There's 3 major things that we need to overcome when we're deploying AI instead of recruitment. And they get more difficult from left to right. So actually on the left-hand side is actually the easiest. We've kind of figured this out. How to build and maintain these models. You just need to get access to high-quality data, large volumes of high-quality data. You need to develop it in a way to avoid bias. You need to monitor performance over time. You need to monitor ontology changes. New drugs come to market. You need to update your models for the new drugs and new conditions that come to market over time. We need to make these things reliable. humans make mistakes, AI makes mistakes as well. I like to think of these things like we need to make sure that they're safe and effective, just like we need to figure out if drugs are safe and effective. These tools need to be tested, they need to be evaluated. Obviously, the organizations that are building them are evaluating them, but we need to work with organizations, health systems to roll them out and verify that they work specific to the site, specific to the data that we're working with. Okay, last but not least is implementation, which is actually one of the biggest challenges. So assuming that you've built a great model, you've built great AI, you've made it reliable, the question is how do you get it in front of the people that matter? How do you get that prediction to a doctor? How do you get that prediction to a patient? Will they trust it? Will they understand it? Will they act on it? How can they act on it? That's actually one of the biggest challenges in AI today. It's not actually building models. It's getting the right information to the right person at the right time. So these are some big challenges to overcome with AI instead of recruitment we're working on. Okay. Some quick case studies. So this is some work that we've done in the past. This is specifically, I mentioned earlier, our IntelliQuit patient trial screening, trial matching solution. So we have developed a number of NLP parsers to go after some of the highest, most important information, staging, ECOG and Gleason, smoking, surgeries, biomarkers, and morphology. It's not a perfect science. You never get 100% accuracy, but we've got really, really great accuracy rates, up above 90% for most of our parsers, and we're continuing to improve them. We have to continuously, review, fix, deploy, continuously improve these solutions over time as data changes and new data comes in, but we've parsed over 120 million notes with over 40% providing results at this point, and we've gotten really, really great results. Specifically for biomarkers, we're looking for over 437 different biomarkers and 478 different symptoms. We look for 1,200 different surgery descriptions and symptoms, morphology, 2,700 histology descriptions and symptoms. And it works. It really helps sites out, match better to their patients. Sites have told us that they're able to find patients 3 times faster, 40% more accurate patient accrual rate, and incredible time savings for sites. Also in predictive models, I didn't have a good example for trial recruitment, but we've done some great work in predictive models. Here's some work our team has done in the NHS. So basically, trying to predict stroke. So we're looking at the data, looking at patients with atrial fibrillation, trying to figure out who might have a stroke, get them on statins, get them on the appropriate drugs earlier on, and we've seen really the ability to really reduce the number of strokes in the UK. Goes up 22%. Across the 3,000 primary sites we ran this on, and it's a big savings in funding for the NHS. So, that's it. That's all I have. I'm sorry I rushed through it so quickly because I only have so much time and I want to leave a little bit of time for questions. Hopefully you have a better understanding of AI today, some of the challenges, some of the ways in which it can be used, and the things that we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Here in Montreal at McGill. Yeah, I was very intrigued at the beginning of your talk where you were talking about unstructured data. Obviously, this is a huge problem on the clinical side and the clinician also. And in research, what I've done in the past as an old guy, it's the mixed method where obviously we do quantitative and we do qualitative. Obviously, you don't get RCT published in the New England because you complement your quantitative evaluation with qualitative. But I was just thinking if this methodology of AI or this could be used in qualitative, because qualitative research is rarely done associated with RCT. It's extremely laborious, and it should be done more often, because then we can learn beyond what our measurement tool are measuring. Those measurement tools have limitation. They have to be standardized, and by being standardized, obviously you have to limit the information to what the average people will be interested in. But there are additional information that you need. Are you aware of any use of AI that will help building in our RCT some qualitative research that will facilitate that when we do RCT?
That's a great question. Thank you. Health data is very messy, And health systems have a lot of different ways in which they document stuff. I remember from my days at Olympus, we've got to work with sites, and some doctors want to describe a polyp as 1 centimeter, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters. Some doctors would say it's small, medium, large, right? So there's a lot of different ways to describe things in records. Also, it's important to remember that just because there is a field in the EMR doesn't mean that people put in data into the field. Insofar as qualitative research, so it's best to think of AI as an assistive tool to help out, right? Because it's not perfect. So certainly it can help sift through the data and find matches and speed up the time it will take to conduct that qualitative research. Whether or not we would take the data as gospel and use it in a publication, I think the best way to think about it is as assisting. We're not replacing doctors, we're helping doctors. We're not replacing researchers, we're helping researchers. So hopefully I don't know if that answers a bit.
Thanks so much for your talk, and I'm glad to hear you're not replacing doctors. That's fantastic. My question, actually I have 2 questions. So my first question is around how smart is the AI tool? So clearly it can pull out data like patient is ECOG2. But what if we described how the patient was feeling and acting? So they're resting half the day, they're not able to work anymore, et cetera, but don't actually write their ECOG2. Will the AI be able to pull out that information, analyze it, and then say that patient was ECOG2 by description?
Yes, but should it? So, yes, I mean, it's not hard for us to write NLP parsers to pull out that information, make that interpretation, make that calculation for ECOG or PSA. But it really is a clinical interpretation. It really is a clinical judgment, right? And I don't think we want our software making clinical judgments for us. I think we want them to assist us and maybe recommend things, and then it should be reviewed by a clinician or somebody in the research department to verify. But yeah, it can, of course.
Yeah, just because it could be a limitation if it can't do that. As you said, our notes are written in all different ways. Sometimes we're very explicit, sometimes much more flowery. So I guess that's a balance there. My second question was around privacy and confidentiality. Just whenever I'm thinking about kind of third-party applications in our EMR, which we're doing now, we're using AI to help generate our notes in the clinic, and we've been reassured these are all covered from a HIPAA perspective. I'm just wondering, your program in particular, what are the confidentiality and privacy regulations in place, and where does the liability lie if data does, escape where it's not supposed to?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's very important. So a couple things on that. First off is usually when we work with clients in the US and Japan, we install software, we install a server behind the firewall at the hospital. All the data and processing happens on site. We don't use the cloud, believe it or not. And that's for data privacy reasons. It makes clients feel a lot more comfortable. When data does come out to be aggregated to research, we de-identify the information. And we generally go through third-party independent reviews of de-identification methodology to verify that statistically it cannot be re-identified. So hopefully that helps you out. Yeah.
Hi there. Fadi Jabril with GCNK Canada. Thanks so much for your presentation. Yesterday we had a very passionate study manager from St. Mary's. I'm not sure if she's still here, but she was calling out the fact that Canada's fallen down the rankings of fertile ground to bring more sponsored clinical trials to the Canadian landscape relative to other countries, relative to other regions like Asia, for example, or South America. And we're starting to realize that as well as manufacturers. It's quite hard to kind of bring more clinical trials to Canada relative to other regions. So just wondering if you had any insights on how we could leverage artificial intelligence to kind of demonstrate the potential that Canada has and bring more clinical trials here.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. It's all a risk-benefit, I think, calculation for a lot of the organizations as to who to work with. I think that the sites that are technology-enabled are easier to be able to produce. They're able to participate in studies quicker. They're able to answer questions around site surveys quicker. They're able to gather patients, find patients, gather patients quicker. So they become a more attractive site to sponsors, I think. So I think we need to get more tech enablement happening among our sites, and that will really speed up and make Canada a more attractive place for research. But again, I'm speculating my opinion.
Yeah, no, thanks for that talk. It was very interesting. One of the things I've always had a question about AI. So one of the advantages, or you could argue the biggest advantage of AI is its ability to learn rapidly. could then also argue that it's actually one of the biggest disadvantages because any bias that's in the data gets amplified by the accelerated learning capacity of AI. So I'm just wondering, like, what's IQVIA doing around sort of the bias that's inherent in our electronic medical?
Yes, it's a great question. And if I go back to this here, the challenges around reliability and also sort of building and maintaining models. It's not a one-time thing. You don't just build it, set it, and forget it like the rotisserie. You need to build it and then continuously monitor the performance of these solutions, especially if they have a feedback loop in their learning. You need to make sure it doesn't aggregate bias in the wrong direction, but then also that it doesn't get inappropriate results. So it's important to design these programs and think long-term about these programs, not just at, hey, how do we build it upfront?
Hi, Michael. Thank you very much. And I'm glad you were here yesterday for some of the conversations too. I wear many hats, but I'm asking you this from a patient perspective based on some conversations yesterday. I think it's really interesting that AI could potentially be used for patients to improve registries so patients can use registries to find clinical trials themselves. And we recently we're going to be releasing a module in patient navigation of clinical trials based on whatever patheticness we have now. But anyway, that's the reality and that's what we use. I would put forward to you and others in the audience here to have AI genius like yourself, a patient partner, whoever that is, and a researcher clinician to put in a grant to actually use AI to improve registries. And I'm just wondering if you've heard in your field if people are thinking that and looking at that, not from a disease-specific perspective, but from a more global, agnostic to disease, finding clinical trials from that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Actually, if you go back to the slide where I talked about who I am and my experience, I didn't list myself an AI expert because I feel like I'm not really an AI expert. There are people that are much smarter. But specifically on registries, I think that one of the things you need to do when you're collecting data into registries, you need to streamline that data. You need to get the data into the registry in the first place. There's a lot of manual data extraction that's happening. We send out extractors to sites that manually sit here with the EMR, sit here with the EC, and then copy data across. So anything we can do to streamline that data collection. Some of the data that we need to collect is stuck in unstructured text. So we can use the NLP to help find some of that data in unstructured text and push it into the EDC. Insofar, I focus very much on site-based, I don't focus very much on patient-based. But I do think you're right, there is an opportunity for us to sift through large sets of information, help patients sort of directly match. They can permission their own data, they can take their data, they can permission it to an app. That app can go look up in a database and find what might match for them and help them identify sites. I think that's where we need to get to.
Thank you, Michael. I think we'll end it there. You actually